Chris Clacio's favorite spot in Winnipeg is the Bell Tower on Selkirk Avenue. His favorite app is Transit. His first job was sales rep for Cutco Canada. Favorite book? Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche. Happy place? The Indigenous Family Center. And Chris Clacio's theme song? You Gave My Heart a Home by Johnny Reed.
Well, we are interviewing all 11 candidates for mayor of the city of Winnipeg, and today Chris Clacio is with us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm a little starstruck to be in your presence. So, seen you all my life, so just to be in this space with you, it's an opportunity of a lifetime.
That's very, very kind. Thank you. Let's get to know why you're interested in civic politics. So you registered, Chris, as a mayoral candidate in 2018. I know that you didn't appear on the ballot because you didn't quite complete the nomination process. But 4 years later, you're on the ballot. Why do you want the job of mayor?
When I look back in 2014, we had new mayoral candidates that I never felt like were engaging. And so just to see that from that time till now, that a lot of politicians have not changed their behaviors. And the way they talk to a lot of individuals like myself, it just seems like they're not talking to me as a voter or as a citizen of the city. And I feel like civic engagement is lacking. And I think that's what's missing within our municipal government is a civic engagement process.
Now, speaking of that, you've also run for school trustee in the past. How engaged would you say that you are in local politics, and where does that come from for you?
Back in high school, I was very involved in my high school with many social groups. And as I graduated, I went to U of W to study politics. And so this is my background. Academic career has always been around politics and just civics.
How far do you take it? Do you go to a lot of meetings, for example? And I'm just trying to gauge that for your interest level and understanding of it.
Since 2014 to be exact, I've been working with urban Indigenous young people, going to, for example, Nietzsche Commons to talk about politics, brainstorms, or politics with an X, because the X means a vote. And so we've been talking about system literacy, and that's the thing that I feel like politicians don't really engage citizens about. How do systems work? And as a civic practitioner and a policy entrepreneur, that's my expertise of knowledge.
On your website, you say civics at the end of the day is the question of asking not what your city can do for you, but asking what you can do for your city, which is, of course, a civic play on a famous quote. If elected, what would you promise you could do or hope you could do for Winnipeg?
My first commitment has been to rebrand and expand the Office of Public Engagement into this Office of Civic Engagement. When I think about civic engagement, I think about knowing your rights, your responsibilities, your duties, and your values to a city.
What does that look like for the average voter that might be thinking, does that mean I could go to City Hall any time of day or night and there be an actual office space for me there to visit? Or what does that mean in terms of practically?
It's based on, for example, in Calgary, they have a civic innovation lab. It's similar concept here. I would like to see if citizens have an idea in their local neighborhood, they would go to this Office of Civic Engagement to implement and connect with city staff that could implement that project with their city councilors.
You're the youngest candidate. What would you say to other young Winnipeggers who aren't even interested in voting, that they don't want to support current political structures, so they're disengaged?
For me, it's higher levels of government is where we put so much emphasis on, and we forget the local government affects us every day. And there's an adage saying, you won't notice federal services gone like a month. You won't notice provincial services until like a week. But local government, if no one takes care of your garbage, water, and waste, and citizens will see that impact.
Speaking of those levels of government, you have also in your campaign talked about forging a new relationship, is your language, between municipal and provincial governments. How exactly would you go about doing that?
There's a conversation right now in our country about our relationships with urban Indigenous young people. And my engagement with them over those 7 years in the inner city has shown me that if we really want honor, truth, and reconciliation, we have to acknowledge whose land we're standing on.
In terms of relating to the province, though, how would you forge a better relationship with that level of government?
That would be through the creation of a provincial constitution. It's based on, for example, the only other province in our country that has a provincial constitution is BC. And as you look at the city of Vancouver and looking at the metro region for Vancouver, they have services that address the region as a whole, and that's what's lacking within our provincial government.
What would people, Chris Clacio, be surprised to know about you?
I call myself a civic practitioner and a policy entrepreneur. I've worked with a good friend of mine named Mark Head, and we've talked about intercivics, which is a concept that comes from two words, interdependence and civics. And so when we think about interdependence for myself, I ask the question, how does the mayor's office work with city councilors, city departments, and city services? And then how does higher levels of government play into that relationship? And not many citizens understand that jurisdictional or mandates, and so that's the first step that people need to be must be educated on and advocate through.
You talk about a lot of your ideas, but what about your vision? If someone votes for you, what is your Winnipeg in the future? How do you see Winnipeg? How do you see the city?
I've been thinking not just 4 years, 10 years ahead. I'm thinking 10,000 years into the future. I think people are ready for our vision, and the world is not going to be the same since this 2 years. And so how we think about the future it's about relationships. A good friend of mine once said that programs don't change people, relationships do. And we really need to focus on our relationships to different citizens who don't feel engaged. And as a person of color, I come from the Filipino diaspora, and my connections with my own community has always been a complicated one as well. And working with urban and indigenous young people, there is a similarity within the history. And so I understand working with urban and indigenous young people that I see the path forward is through working with urban and indigenous young people to lead the way, and us as politicians must be the ones engaging them.
And just as a last question, your platform says directly you want to encourage citizens to build relationships, and you've alluded to this, with neighbors and governments to end divisions in society. Why is that a concern of yours in Winnipeg?
I think right now the conversation it's very divisive, and we are lacking that sense of unity. The next mayor needs to focus on unity, and if they can't even pitch a story about how our city came to be, that's a problem for me. I believe the next mayor must be a great storyteller, and one thing that I've learned is the greatest storyteller is the land that you stand on. So understanding our relationship to Treaty 1, what does that mean? For me, acknowledging the name. To address racism, we have to acknowledge the land that we stand on, and that is the Stone Fort Treaty. When you hear politicians saying Treaty 1, what does that mean? That seems like pandering.
Chris Clacio, good luck on the 26th. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.